Craig's here to represent the Disability Justice Hub. Craig, could you tell us a little bit about where you're from and where we find you today? Is that all right?
Yeah, sure.
And just let me know when you're ready.
Excellent. I'm living in South Yorkshire. Many of you probably know I've been a Baptist minister in the past. I'm no longer doing that, but I'm involved in various things all over Europe at present.
Good to go?
I'm good to go.
Ready, steady, go.
All humans are created in God's image, and God declares this to be good. Image is a statement about inherent value. Jesus, God with a human face, treated people who others considered outcasts with equal dignity and respect. Image is also a statement about relationship. When asked the tricky question about paying taxes to a repressive regime, Jesus had his detractors bring a coin to him, and he asked them, "Whose image is this and whose inscription?" "Caesar's," they replied. He said to them, "So give back to Caesar what is Caesar's and to God's what is God's." Each of us are different in so many ways, and yet we each have the capacity to be true images of the one who gave us the gift of life. The Gospels tell of an occasion when Jesus' disciples noticed a man who looked different. He was unable to see. The question at the top of their agenda was theological. Who sinned? Who is to blame? In those days, a person with a disability was forced to expose his difference in order to beg for a living. Jesus' actions empowered the man in numerous small ways and also restored his sight. You will have viewed thousands of bodies in your lifetime, and you've got a clear mental pattern of what one normally looks like. It takes a millisecond to match the body you see with the embedded pattern stored in your brain, and the whole process is completely subconscious. When you scan a crowd or meet someone for the first time, you subconsciously match your store of embedded images to features you recognize. This is the point at which people who look different is experienced as a shock to your system. Human disability therefore creates a tension. We all tend to stare at a bodily difference we've not seen before simply because it's something that is usually a subconscious act, is being drawn to our conscious awareness, and we're forced to deal with the unusual visual image that's before us. Disability is only a theological question for those of us who believe in both a good and a sovereign God. Yet in my experience, most people tend to avoid this sort of hard question, maybe out of fear that the map they use to make sense of the world might not be up to the job. I wanted answers to disability questions throughout my early years as a Christian, but I was afraid to ask because the stakes were too high for at least 4 reasons. It requires huge vulnerability and creates tension in relationships. It risks putting other people in an embarrassing situation. It creates a scenario where a simplistic answer may be dragged in as a stopgap, and it may unmask the possibility that no satisfying answer exists. But the why questions are actually pretty meaningless. They've only got currency where the underlying assumption is that something called normal actually exists. The fact is that variety is everywhere, but we're more used to some differences than others. Human faces are all different, so are fingerprints, snowflakes, hair color, and regional accents. We marvel at variety within creation, in which I understand no straight lines ever exist. We're all different in countless ways, and yet so many strive to be the same in order to belong, to fit in, to be accepted, not as we are, but as we believe others want us to be. Some differences limit a person's ability to join in, to be heard and understood, to communicate, to be spontaneous, and to live without reserve. Add to that the discrimination that's the very real experience for so many of us, and the loss of opportunity and lack of confidence that follows. But other differences are not so obvious. The disability that complicates my life the most is not the one you can see. Most people act in order to fit in. They put on different masks to suit each occasion. In order to do this effectively, it's necessary to pick up on social cues. But some people can't do this easily. They are socially disabled. Jesus refused to play the social games that would have endeared him to others. Some said he was mad, but others found him authentic and believed he had integrity. He talked about things that were as clear as daylight, but were considered taboo. Jesus was led by his Father to places polite people thought he shouldn't be. He confronted injustice and hypocrisy, honouring those who were different, marginalised and strange. In our age, Jesus' behaviour might be labelled autistic because he simply refused to play culturally defined social games. He told Nicodemus he was simply taking his cues from a different kingdom and that only those who are born again can see. Jesus possessed a soft heart which was capable of being moved by compassion, ears which could hear from heaven, a second pair of spiritual eyes which noticed details others thought were unimportant, and a new way of thinking which turned established traditions and ideas upside down. Autistic or authentic, it depends on your perspective. Jesus chose to be different, and society treated him accordingly. We all feel that same social pressure to think and believe the same. Lines are drawn between unorthodox and orthodox opinions, and maybe we treat other humans created in God's image differently for not conforming. Fear of being different paralyzes. Shame creates pain. Pride produces hierarchies, and ego resists tearing them down. Prejudice thinks it knows best and prevents deep listening to another point of view. Jesus calls us to choose different like he was. People who accept their difference can be a gift. Trying to be the same as others is a waste of a life. So here are my questions to you. How are you different? And are you accepting your difference? Do you hide your differences, or might they be a gift to the world? Do others who are different scare you? Why? Do the social settings you live in or the institutions you have built have a place for different people? If they do, you will have been enriched by different perspectives. You will have learned to be more vulnerable because people who don't fit in bring this gift with them. Finally, can I invite you to reflect on what was different about Jesus and ask yourself why? We are, after all, called to follow him, not the world.
Thank you so much, Craig. Lots of questions there. Do you hide your differences, or might they be your gift to the world? Do the social settings you live in or the institutions you've built, including our churches, have a place for different people?